Yo, Dave Loughran here with another super important video to get you prepped for your drafts. Now, I know that we love taking risks in fantasy football, especially in the later rounds where we're hunting down that untapped upside that's going mostly overlooked. Quarterback is a perfect position for that, especially this season with so much depth in the back end of the draft, and especially in best ball leagues where risk and uncertainty are totally your friend. You're trying to win a large field tournament, right? You're not trying to take home the trophy in a 12-team home league, even though this video is also 100% for you as well, so don't go anywhere. But in best ball, your natural strategy has to change. And this video isn't specifically for best ball either, but July is best ball drafting season. And that means that Underdog Fantasy has two huge tournaments drafting right now. One with over $1 million to first place and a $3.5 million prize pool, which is the biggest in best ball history, and another with up to $50,000 up top and only $5 to enter. I've absolutely loved drafting over there at Underdog, and there's no doubt that if you're not already over there, you're going to love it too. Use the promo code Awesemo when you get started. That's AWESEMO. You'll get $25 when you sign up and deposit. Head over to Underdog Fantasy, use that promo code Awesemo, get your $25, and start drafting today. You're going to love it. Now let's get to our top 6 late round quarterbacks to draft in 2020. But before we do me a favor, if you don't mind, if you've enjoyed these videos and you think they've helped you out along the way, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, and leave a comment on what you think about the players on this list. I read all the comments, I respond to all the comments, even if they're not so flattering. Let's get into it. Matt Ryan has attempted 600 plus passes in 7 of his last 9 seasons and has finished with at least 25 touchdowns and 4,500 plus passing yards in all but one of those years. And while he's had a couple disappointing campaigns along the way, Ryan has been a top 10 fantasy quarterback in 8 of his last 11 seasons and has clocked quarterback 12, 7, 2, 14, and 3 performances over the last 5 years. Another thing about Ryan that often goes overlooked is his ability to stay healthy. Ryan has missed 1 game since 2010 and 3 of a possible 208 games for his career. So while Julio Jones is no longer in Atlanta, Ryan will still be equipped with some excellent pass-catching options in Calvin Ridley, who I think could legitimately finish as the wide receiver 1 this season, but definitely inside the top 5, and Kyle Pitts, who became the highest selected tight end in NFL draft history just a few months back. Russell Gage is a respectable third option in the passing game, and Mike Davis is a perfectly capable receiver out of the backfield too. Ryan led the league in passing attempts last season, was 4th in yards, and 12th in touchdowns. And that was with Jones completing only 7 games. Ryan was also 3rd in red zone attempts and targets to the end zone. And with 2 serious threats inside the 20 like Pitts and Ridley, who caught 7 of his 9 scores inside the 20 last year, there's reason to believe Ryan could easily cross the 30 touchdown threshold again this season. Ryan is currently the 17th quarterback going off the board with an ADP of 138 on Underdog Fantasy. He makes for a fantastic stacking option with Ridley, Pitts, Gage, or even a late round flyer like Olamide Zaccheaus, and has one of the highest floors at his position. Now we just need him to produce one of those ceiling years like we've seen him do plenty of times in the past. Aaron Rodgers is coming off an MVP season in Green Bay where he threw for a career-high 48 touchdowns and accounted for 51 scores overall. Amazingly, he finishes the QB3, not the QB1, behind Josh Allen and Kyler Murray, which just proves how valuable rushing upside is for quarterbacks who may not be elite passers like Rodgers. We'll get to that in a little bit. Since being installed as the Packers' full-time starter back in 2008, Rodgers has posted top 2 finishes at his position in 7 of 11 seasons, where he played at least 15 games. The other 4 finishes, 3rd, 7th, 10th, and 11th. He's currently being drafted as the QB 13 with a 112 ADP on Underdog, and as I'm sure you've heard me say many times before, basically no player is undraftable if they fall far enough in the draft. With the uncertainty swirling around Rodgers' status in Green Bay, there's no way we're drafting him as a top 5 or 6 quarterback right now, which is where he'd likely be going otherwise. But taking a shot on him outside of the starter range is huge. This is also where drafting earlier in the summer can help pay huge dividends if you're smart about it. And it's looking more and more like he'll play this year, whether that's for the Packers or somewhere else. But even if the damage in Green Bay is irreparable, there are teams who would surely love to have the 3-time MVP on their roster. Rodgers' lack of rushing upside limits his ceiling, and he's actually only eclipsed 4,500 passing yards once in his career. But he had the 2nd lowest percentage of bad passes in the league last year at 14.3%. Deshaun Watson led the league at 14.2%. Rodgers was sacked on only 3.5% of his dropbacks and led the league in both adjusted completion percentage and passer rating. And if that's not enough, Rodgers was an absolute beast on end zone throws, with 25 passes to the end zone resulting in touchdowns. Not to mention, he also led the league with 4 touchdowns of 50-plus yards. And with a touchdown interception ratio of 155-24 over the last 5 seasons, you know you're getting an elite quarterback at less than half the cost, assuming, of course, that he's on the field for week 1. I'm beginning to think he will be. Matthew Stafford finished as a top 10 quarterback in all but one season between 2011 and 2017, but has since finished 20th, 29th, and 15th over his last 3 seasons. But upon further inspection, there's really no reason to be concerned. First, Stafford only had Kenny Golladay for 4 full games last season, where he was the wide receiver 11 over those weeks. Second, coaching hasn't exactly been stellar in Detroit. And by almost all reports, it seems like there wasn't a single player in the Lions locker room who had any respect for Matt Patricia over his 2+ years as the Lions head coach. Third, and maybe most important, Stafford was on pace for almost 5,000 yards and 38 touchdowns through 8 games in 2019 before a back injury sidelined him for the second half of the season. He did have good pass blocking last year, though, and Darrell Bevell wasn't exactly a bottom-of-the-barrel offensive coordinator. But when your top passing option is Marvin Jones and you rank 30th in the run game, things generally don't go your way. Now Stafford will replace Jared Goff in Los Angeles and play under a head coach in Sean McVay, who has been celebrated as an offensive genius for years now. The Rams' offensive line showed marked improvement in 2020 and got the run game working again after an ugly 2019. But Jared Goff remained a liability, posting the lowest ADOT in the league behind only Drew Brees and attempted a dismal 7.8% of his passes 20-plus yards downfield. Second to last behind, you guessed it, Drew Brees. Goff completed only 30% of those passes. Stafford, meanwhile, attempted deep balls at a near 13% clip and connected on 41.6% of them. His ADOT was 5th highest in the league at 9.4 yards. He can open up the offense far more than Goff ever could, and McVay will surely take advantage of this. With pass catchers at his disposal like Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, and even a deep threat in Deshaun Jackson if he can stay healthy, Stafford could be eyeing his best season in years. He's the 12th quarterback going off the board on Underdog with an ADP of 105, which makes him a great addition towards the end of the 9th round. I'm lumping Trey Lance and Justin Fields together here because they have too many similarities to ignore. Both are first-round rookie quarterbacks heading into the season as presumed backups on their respective teams, but both could be starting sooner than later. The 49ers used the top 3 pick to land Lance in the draft, and the Bears gave up a 2021 first and 4th to move up and grab Fields at 11. Lance and Fields have one thing that makes them stand out among the rest of the late-round quarterback crowd: rushing upside. Lance rushed for an absurd 1,243 yards and 16 touchdowns in 17 starts at North Dakota State, while Fields was no slouch himself, amassing 867 yards and 15 touchdowns on the ground across 22 starts. Lance had a pristine 30-1 touchdown-to-interception ratio and averaged 9.3 yards per attempt. Sure, it was North Dakota State, and he doesn't exactly have a huge body of work to evaluate, but those are outright elite numbers, and it'll be exciting to see what he can do with Kyle Shanahan at the helm in San Francisco. What makes Fields special for fantasy is he is a pass-first quarterback who can also make huge plays with his legs. Fields threw 63 touchdowns as a starter and also averaged 9.3 yards per attempt. I actually think he has a clearer path to start earlier in the season than Lance does too, given how Andy Dalton is anything but a starting caliber quarterback, and the Bears offense could struggle a lot more earlier on than the 49ers. Here's the bottom line. Neither of these rookies are being drafted as starters right now, and they probably shouldn't be. But as the preseason rolls around, or even during training camp, and we start to hear about how well they're playing and the potential for them to start becomes a reality, we're going to see their draft stocks soar. These rushing quarterbacks are legitimate cheat codes in fantasy and can help you win your leagues. Look at Lamar Jackson in the second half of his rookie season, or even Jalen Hurts towards the end of last year. They're both now being drafted as top 8 quarterbacks in 2021. I'll happily be drafting some teams with these guys as my only backup, and on Underdog Fantasy, where Lance and Fields have ADPs of 118 and 133 respectively, you should absolutely be taking some shots on them in a best ball format where it pays to take risks. Jameis Winston was the QB3 in his last season as a starter with the Bucs, despite becoming the founding member of the 30-30 club in the same year. Winston became the first player to throw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions if you were unsure what I was talking about. And even in an ugly 2018 season where Winston was benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick and then reinserted as the starter later in the year, he posted QB4 numbers in the 11 games he played. And he only played 8 of them from start to finish. Winston, plain and simple, can be a fantasy goldmine, even if he is one of the most erratic quarterbacks in the league. The interceptions lead to points for the opposition, which leads to more pass attempts from Winston. There's always the question of whether or not he'll be benched in the event that he's the Saints' Week 1 starter, or if Sean Payton scales back his responsibilities and leans more on the ground with Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray. But he has an ADP of 180 on Underdog right now, going off the board as the QB 25. We play all fantasy leagues to win them, but best ball differs from your regular leagues in that you can't always be conservative, and at times you have to embrace the volatility. What better way to do that than to grab Winston super late in the draft after you've already landed a reliable quarterback, and then pair Winston with the likes of Michael Thomas, who I already posted a video on why I think he's wildly undervalued this season, Adam Troutman, or Traquan Smith, of whom the latter two you can get later in the draft. Now look, I'm not saying there aren't plenty of question marks here. Taysom Hill is still a threat to win the starting job, and even if he doesn't, we could see him more involved in the offense than he was when Drew Brees was in town. And Winston's style of play could be forced to change even if he starts, given the super low ADOT approach that Peyton and Brees ran for years. But what if that's good for Winston? He can still open it up at times, but won't be as prone to mistakes. I'd be willing to take either version of Winston at his current ADP on Underdog, which is essentially free. Thanks for watching. As always, head over to Awesemo.com, check out everything we've got going on over there, and stick around for the next one. Hit that thumbs up and the subscribe on your way out. We'll see you back here soon.